song for the Imps? How about a song for the Imps? There we go then. Come on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a good old Imps song, yeah. Okay, you're on. Come on, fellas. Get around the piano. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. You ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Radiance is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our...
Morning, City fans. How are we doing this morning? It is a bright and crisp morning up in the Wolds. The sun's in my face, but my hands are freezing. First of all, huge apologies to Tish Applewhite, who is a patron of the site. Really appreciate everybody's support on that. She messaged a few weeks ago and said, I never know when the dog walks are going live. And the honest answer is, if you're watching this back, because a lot of you will be, if you're watching it back and you're going, I always miss them as well. How can I catch them live? The truth is, nobody really can. I struggle to catch them live, mainly because, can you see somewhere up on the up the path? He's somewhere just there. Is a little black dog who basically rules my life, and he has no set schedule. We never know when he's going to get up. We never know when he's going to be bothered to walk very far at all. This morning I may be on for 10 minutes. I may be on for 6 minutes. It depends on him really, but it's a crisp morning. He was groomed yesterday. He didn't go out last night. I'm assuming he's going to want a little bit of a run around in the mud to get all of the nice smells off him. So we're going to do a quick dog walk. And I think there's a lot to talk about ahead of tonight's game with Cambridge, which I see as the final game of the early Skubala period, because he's come in Saturday, Tuesday, bang, 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 like 4 punches, and then it's right, let's sit back. It's not quite 10 days now because we've got the BSM trophy game against Accrington, which he'll have to prepare for, but it's 10 days away from league action. And league action is, he's coming, league action is kind of where it's at, I think. You know, we've heard lots of talk of top 6 assaults, promotion, in Michael Skubala's kind of early interviews. I find that really interesting because the way he speaks about it, it's almost as if it's a given. It's almost as if one of the remits of him coming in this season was, we need to be clinging on to that top 6. That's the aspiration, in my opinion. And look, there's every chance we can do that. I'm not here to debate that today, because we're coming through this tough early period. 5 points from 4 games, would that be a good return for a new head coach coming in his first role with all the injuries that we've got? Absolutely. Go to Cambridge tonight, get a draw. That's not a bad result. That's 3 games then unbeaten as well. Go there and get a win, which we're more than capable of doing, even with the side that we may have to put out. And then he's in a much better position, 7 from 4. You take 7 points from every set of 4 games that you play this season, you'll be in the top 6. And somebody is going to come and tell me mathematically that's not the case. Please do feel free to do that. But I know that if over 40 games you've taken 70 points, in the remaining 6 games you're going to take, another 7, 8 points. You're going to be there. You're going to be in the playoffs. So that's playoff form. Win tonight. Michael Skubala is showing playoff form in his first 4 games in charge. That's fact. Let's have a quick look at morning. We've got morning from Andrew Gray. So morning, my friend. Another friend of mine there, Mr. Ward. Good morning, sir. Steve Jollins, morning, mate. Hope you're well. And Steve Barton, morning. Steve Jollins, by the way, how many cars have you owned? I'm friends with Steve on Facebook, and he puts all these things on. I never know whether it's tongue in cheek that he's owned all these cars. He's owned more cars than, I don't know who's owned a lot of cars. A professional footballer, probably. Anyway, back to Cambridge United. So it's a really important game tonight, and I think we'll always learn. Every game will teach us a little bit about Michael Skubala, and it'll teach Michael Skubala a little bit about Lincoln City, about his players, his team, his approach, and that sort of thing. And I believe that tonight is going to be, it's not crucial, it's not critical, it's nothing like that. There's no must-win games. What happens tonight won't define the rest of his reign, all of that sort of stuff. But it'll be really interesting to see how we come out in this game, because Cambridge are not going to want to lose it, but there's going to be a certain amount of pressure on them to win it. And as Mel Kerwin says, their home form hasn't been that bad. It hasn't. It's not like they're not one of these teams that's struggling kind of at home and away. Their home form is very good. It's their away form. I think Shrewsbury are another team that you look at that. They'll look at Shrewsbury today and see they've something like a minus 15 goal difference. It's all on away. It might even have been Cambridge, one of the two. But the away, the home form at Cambridge is strong. But that plays into our hands, in my opinion, because if the home form is strong, it shows that they have a desire to go out to win the game, and that is going to play into our hands. We saw it in the second half against Barnsley. We saw it for a degree in the first half against Barnsley. Barnsley are a different proposition. Dare I say, without being disrespectful to Cambridge, Barnsley have better players. I don't think that that's me being particularly stinging. And I think at the moment our squad is closer to Barnsley's when fit than it is to Cambridge's. So it's one of the games where you would think probably Lincoln City should in brackets be winning it. And as Ben said, Michael Skubala in his interview with Callum on BBC Radio Lincolnshire, who did Hope and Glory last night, the new addition to the team, who I actually found very engaging, which was good. He said Skubala was almost bullish, a game that we probably should be winning. It's absolutely certain that we should be winning this sort of game without being disrespectful if you want to finish in the top 6. So how we perform is going to be really interesting. I came away from the Barnsley game, I do not mind saying it, buzzing. A 2-2 draw, absolutely buzzing, because of the intent that we showed, because I always felt that we might score a goal, because I always felt that I hesitate to say wanted to win the game, because no team goes out and doesn't want to win a game. But our primary focus was scoring goals in that game. And okay, we didn't create chance after chance. But that's when you then come back to, well, we didn't have, Tyler Walker, Ben House, Rico Hackett, easy to fall back onto. But fact. And as I think I've said on the podcast, as I will never stop saying, it will not be an excuse. There will never be a point where you'll go, well, we've got 3, 4, 5 of our starting 11 out at the top end of the pitch. That will never not be an excuse. But I still felt, even with that, we wanted to go and win the game. And that's what I want to see tonight. I think against Stevenage, it was complete opposite. I think we knew what we were trying to do. Against Leyton Orient, it was the game of two halves. We were certainly better in the second half. We had higher possession. Has there been that change kind of at Orient half time? Or do we, going away to Cambridge, does it kind of go back a little bit to Leyton Orient a week ago? And let's be honest, the Orient win was brilliant and we all celebrated it and we were all absolutely delighted. But it was an average game and it wasn't a great first half. And the difference between the two teams was taking chances, wasn't anything significant. But bear in mind, we had better XG than Barnsley on Saturday. And if you take the penalty out, but then add in whatever XG would come from Burroughs' chance that he was going to have from the penalty, we would have at least matched Barnsley's XG as well. So that was impressive. And I know that people don't particularly like XG. It's a guide, not a stat. Although Chris Ray insists it's a stat, Pete Summers insists it's not. I'd love to get those two together, two intelligent men arguing about something that both of them believe they're right. But anyway, it's a guide. If somebody is sitting watching a video at home and decides, right, your XG for that is 0.2, your XG for that is 0.3, your XG for that is 0.6, fair enough. Somebody else might go, well, actually it's 0.5, 0.1, 0.8 for that. But it's still an opportunity that somebody is looking at and going, that's an opportunity at goal. So the higher your XG, the more chances you're having. Ours was higher than Barnsley's with the penalty, would have matched Barnsley's without the penalty. That I'm delighted about. I want to see that again tonight. I want to see Lincoln City's XG climbing because I believe strongly in XG, as all of you know. I often talk about Plymouth Argyle under Derek Adams a couple of years ago. I think we were in League 2 at the time, and Plymouth were challenging for the playoffs. And I remember that I first was made aware of it on the Not the Top 20 podcast, George Ellick and Ali Maxwell. Brilliant podcast. And George Ellick said, Plymouth are constantly outperforming their XG. You cannot take that forward. You can't take it forward. If you are outperforming your XG constantly, eventually you're going to struggle. Eventually you're going to fail. And they did. The next season they were relegated. And for me, that was a convincer. And I know it's not always the case. That's why I was concerned last season when we were persistently in the bottom 3 or 4 for XG in the division. We outperformed it last season. And I think to a degree that probably was reflected this season when we were outperforming again, but we were beginning to struggle a little bit against some teams. We weren't creating opportunities. Want to see us creating opportunities. You can't score if the ball in the box. You can't score if you're not having shots. You can't score if you're not having chances. You can't score if you're not having possession high up the field. You certainly can't sustain any sort of run. So that's why tonight's game is really interesting for me, because is that going to be the case again? Is Skubala ball, as we're calling it, bloody hell, my hands are cold. Is Skubala ball going to make that serious difference? We're going to have to see. Sorry, 1 second. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is what I've got to try and navigate my dog over, which is basically utter filth. I paid for him 35 quid to be groomed yesterday, and he's literally going to walk through this. 1 minute. Charlie, what are we doing? You coming on? 1 minute. Do you want to go back? Should we go back? This is the situation. I don't know if you can see this. Go on. He's going to kill me. He's going to kill. Oh no, we're going back. Okay. Come down here. Sorry about this. This is great, isn't it? What great video this is. Okay. 1 minute. Come here. Ready? Okay, we're going back. So that's why the game's really important tonight, because I think we've got to see that kind of improvement in the XG continue. You know, we want to see chances, we want to see wins, and that's why I was so happy with the 2-2 draw. And okay, a late goal is a massive help on that, a huge help on that, because it leaves you feeling positive. If we'd been 2-0 up and conceded 2 in the last minutes, as we did against Stevenage a few years ago, remember that Ilias chair? Oof, phenomenal. Go on. Hang on, people. 1 second, please. Come here. Oh. Say hello to everybody. Look. There we go. I've got to carry him over the mud, which isn't ideal for videoing. Oh, Jesus, now I've got wet feet as well. This is not what I planned to do today, Charlie, is it? No, not that you care. Oh, go on. So remember the Ilias chair? You came away 2-2, and it felt like a little bit of a blow, didn't it? 2-2 in this game, despite leading for so long since the first half. I just felt so positive. So what else can we kind of draw from the first 2 weeks of Skubala? I think that there's a desire to play players in their right position. I know that we've seen Smith on the wing, etc. But starting with Jack Vale, starting with Jovan Makama, he wants to start with nines playing as nines, strikers playing as strikers. He wants to start with Mandroya and Adelakun, for instance, tucking in, but you know, those kind of wider players in the slightly wider role. I really like that. He's not afraid to give players who perhaps were sitting out a chance. We'll see more of Jayden Brown in the first 2 weeks under Skubala than we did in the last 6 or 7 of Mark Kennedy. TJ's been a revelation. 1 or 2 players I think have come to the fore. You know, we had Jovan scoring against Wolves under 21s in the DSM Trophy, and Mark Kennedy come out and criticised him. He's missed 2 chances for Michael Skubala, and in the post-match interview, he's earned quite a bit of praise. You know, and all of a sudden, Jovan feels like a viable option at number 9. And all through September and October, until Mark Kennedy left, although some supporters were saying Jovan could play number 9, we were generally talking about not having a number 9, not having a centre forward, not having a striker. So I think it's interesting that he put in such a robust display against Barnsley. And I think that's fair to say. I hope you agree. Okay, he lacks a little bit of finesse. He is raw. He's 19 years old. Just because Jovan's been around the club for a long while, he's still only a boy. He really is. Yeah, I remember him making a debut. It was in a friendly I think it was pre-season, Michael Appleton's first full campaign, pre-COVID season. He was a boy. I remember him coming on. Who would we have played? I want to say Scunthorpe United. Did we play them in a friendly? Possibly so. Anyway, I can remember Jovan coming on and me just looking at him and thinking, where have we got this boy from? He reminded me a little bit of a young Falcao at the time. But he's filling out, he's getting bigger. And look, there's a reason that the club have kept him around. You know, I was chatting to a club representative last winter window when it was, is Jovan going to go out on loan? And he said, we're really impressed with how he's come back. And then in the summer, again, really impressed with how he's come back in the summer. We think that he will have a role to play in the first team. And therefore, it'll allow us to get Freddie Draper and Charlie Kendall, remember him, the minutes that they kind of need without them wasting away in around our first team. But for Jovan, he's probably more effective from the bench than a Charlie Kendall, because he's a big lad, he's strong, you can target him. And he put that to good use against Barnsley. I was really impressed. Gaz Nicholson, hope you're well, pal. Was Saturday Jovan's full debut? It was his first start in the Football League. I suppose your full debut potentially could now be the EFL Trophy. So I think he started games in that competition, but it was his first Football League start. It was a big moment for him. And do you know what? He didn't look out of place. And at times when he came on under Mark Kennedy, I believe he perhaps did look a little out of place. Maybe it was the style. I don't know. I think there's one or two players that we are seeing at the moment who are clear demonstrations of the fact that all was not particularly well at times with them and their relationship with the previous manager, TJ Ioma. Oh, do you know what? I say this so many times. I love that lad. Absolutely love TJ. I've met him on several occasions. He feels like he has an infectious personality. Do you remember when he came on the pitch, day we lost to Bolton 1-0, he came on the pitch, we'd signed him, and he was in that big puffer jacket and they were singing his name, and he just looked overawed by it all. You know, I remember him kind of, whoa, going down like that. And for people, if you're listening at home, by the way, sorry, you don't know what that is. And that's kind of, I get that his personalities. I went to a sponsored event in July, and I got some of the players to record themselves saying, you're listening to the Stacey West podcast. We got TJ to do it. And I don't know, it was just fun. Everything seems fun for him. We went to a chip shop event up at Burton Road Chippy, best chippy in Lincoln. So I went up there a year or two ago now. And he was one of the guys that came along, him, Sam Long and Chris Maguire. And TJ again was just a great bloke. You know, he's getting the apron on, he was getting himself right involved in it. And aside from all of that, he's a good footballer. We know he's a good footballer. You know, he was one of our better players in the 2020-21 season when we made it to the championship, made it to the playoff final, the League One playoff final, to get into the championship. Remember a goal line block against Sunderland at 2-0 down, where if they'd scored, that was it, out in the semi-finals. He was superb. Just lost his way a little bit after the permanent signing. If the TJ that we've seen over the last 3 games is the TJ that we are getting back now, fantastic. And isn't it we've talked about the depth in the squad after Blackpool and Wickham, where we were able to, and Shrewsbury as well, where we were able to make changes that affected the game. And now you look at the squad and we're saying, oh, it looks unbalanced. No, we're going to have 5 centre halves available for tonight, all of whom I believe would play regular football and 95% of the teams in this division. Pordy would, he's our club captain, he'd get 95% of the teams in this division on a regular basis. Adam Jackson certainly would. Alex Mitchell has been superb. Sean Rowan is the sort of young talent that would also get into tonight. And TJ would. Look, when TJ signed for us, he was wanted by Portsmouth at the time. The Portsmouth were going in heavy and hard for him, closer to London. And there's a few of our players that I'm of the impression of the teams we're looking at. Ali Smith gets criticism, got loads of criticism around me. And he hasn't had a good couple of weeks. But he hasn't had a bad couple of weeks. At times he's looked good, at times he's struggled. But I understand that another League One club, could have been Peterborough, were going in quite hard for him as well over the summer. Last year, Ethan Arahan A player who, again, I think over the last couple of games has begun to pick back up to that form that we know makes him one of the best midfielders in the division on his day. Forest Green offered him significantly more money to go than we were able to, and he chose to come here. So let's not underestimate the power within this squad. Michael Skubala mentioned briefly about recruitment and making tweaks here and there. We don't need wholesale changes in this squad. We really don't. And that kind of brings me forward to after today. So we've got a bit of a broken squad at the minute, and a 10-day break from league action ain't going to see Ben House or Rico Hackett back in the team. Tyler Walker, we don't know how his progress is going. People are critical sometimes of the lack of information that comes out of the club around injuries. But I think at the same time, there's a good reason for that. And the reason we probably don't find out about Tyler is, one, you don't want to put pressure on his recovery. Recovery is not a linear process. It's not he will be back on September the 27th. It's like last week I wasn't very well. I had a cold. I couldn't say for definite I will be clear of this cold on Friday, so I will be at the game Saturday, because what if I'd woke up Saturday and it wasn't quite right? The human body does not adhere to supporters' requests for return. So if we were saying in every single interview, oh, Tyler's back on the grass, he'll be 3 weeks. Tyler's back on the grass, he'll be 2 weeks. Tyler just had a little setback, he's going to be 3 weeks. Oh, God, no, he's injured again. Do you know what I mean? It could be detrimental. So I can understand why we don't get regular updates on players' recoveries. There's certainly more information coming out on the Michael Skubala. You're asking a good, honest question, as Radio Lincolnshire did yesterday about injuries, and you tend to get a good, honest answer. I don't know how my dog's gone. Anyway, pain in the ass today. So I kind of respect that, but it's after this. It's after this, the good squad, the chance to start working with good footballers. They are good footballers. I don't think that we have a bad footballer in the squad. And obviously they're League One footballers. None of them are going to be bad. But I do think that conversation that we were having earlier in the season about having a good squad, a deep squad, when everyone's fit, we've got top 6 squad based on what I've seen from other teams this season. Barnsley were the second best team I've seen at Sincilbank this season, and I thought that we were in with a shout of winning that game with, what, on the day, 8 players from a squad of 22, 23, 8 players out. And we're matching a team who had, what, 1 or 2 players out and playoff aspirations. Oxford, they only beat us through, goals, silly goals that we gifted. I'm really optimistic. And Gaz Nicholson, sorry, I keep coming back to you. I'm quite optimistic with our current squad options that we have until January. And, with Jack Moylan to come in, if we're going to play those 2 tight players behind the number 9, I think that's going to be huge. I don't think we'll see a significant shift in the way that we line up until the end of the season. I can see Skubala sticking as much as possible to the 3-4-3, what the players know. Certainly, having listened to some of his interviews of late, I can see him sticking with that, I think. He said that if it's pre-season, we might play differently. So I think over the summer, you might see a shift and a change. And it depends, of course, what division we're in. I mean, it's probably 80% that will be in League One next season. But a change in formation and a shift in focus can certainly catch people unawares with the squad that we've got as well. I just think we're in a really good place. And I think probably the initial worry from Mark Kennedy leaving and that uncertainty, I think Tom Shaw's done a great job just bridging that gap, keeping us tucked in there. He's given Michael Skubala a great platform to go from. First 3 games, imagine your first 3 games, 3 of them being away and the other one being against a team just outside the top 6 who would beaten playoff finalists the season before. I mean, it doesn't get a lot harder than that, does it? Stevenage. I mean, the Leyton Orient game, we should not underestimate the size of that game given the circumstances around it. That wasn't just a standard Tuesday night away against a team below you in the division. There was a lot of pressure attached to that game. There was a lot of, just say the situation certainly wasn't easy. It's been a baptism of fire for our new head coach. And I think he's done really well. I think he stood up really well to it. Quite excited because I'm looking forward to meeting him in the very near future, putting a few questions to him. and I can go into that really positive. Having seen 5 matches under him, or 4 matches as it'll be by the time that I see him, I think it puts me in a better position to ask some of the questions than if I'd gone in the day before, or the day after rather he'd come in, because you don't really know an awful lot about him. You've seen more, you can probably formulate questions to get more of an idea. So I'm looking forward to that. I just think there's a lot to be positive about. Tonight's result won't affect that. A defeat tonight, which is possible, but a defeat tonight won't make his start any better or worse in terms of behind the scenes. It will in terms of points. Obviously, that'd be a silly thing to say otherwise, wouldn't it? A win, it'll be a great start. 7 points. A defeat, 4 points from 4 games. It's not ideal, but when you think about how much everyone else has played recently, okay, there's a full fixture tonight, but for some teams, this will only be their second game in the same period that we've played 4 games. It's huge with the squad that we've got as well. It really is huge. And we should never, ever underestimate or understate the impact of those injuries and this fixture schedule. And so the breaks come at the right time. And do you know what? Part of me almost wishes we were out of the BSM trophy at the moment, because 10 days on the training ground, we might see a few more changes, but we're going to be looking at match prep on Monday. We're then going to be looking at recovery on Wednesday. So realistically, Thursday, Friday is probably the only time tactically, unless they're in for training Saturday, that the players are going to get kind of Skubala sessions, particularly about setup and tactics under their belt. So whilst we look at this break and go 10 days for League One action, it's probably only 2 or 3 days on the training ground that they can work on things that are not related to games or recovering from games. So whilst it is a break, it's not the size of the break that we're all hoping for, but it is a break. It is a line in the sand. That's 4 games out of the way. And I think that's an important landmark to get to. We'll refer to Michael Skubala as a new head coach for 3, 4, 5 months. But when you've come in and you've then played 4 games in the space of 2.5 weeks, it's almost like a baptism of fire. It's almost like a quick set concrete. It doesn't feel as fresh and new anymore, because we've seen 360 minutes of football. We've seen press conference, pre-match, post-match. We've seen lots of him. It feels like it's been bang, 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 really quick. There hasn't been that kind of that long break between matches or anything like that. So it feels like it's given him a chance to, I don't know, link with supporters. It's given him a chance to just, I'll use cement again, but cement himself as our head coach, not our new head coach. He's not such an unknown. It's not such a surprise when we hear him speak anymore, and I think that's good. Right, let's have a look through some comments. My hand's getting cold, and I'm going to have to carry that little dog over more puddles again. So Gerard, hello mate, watching from Forked River, New Jersey. What I'm going to do when I get home, because I do it all the time, is I'm going to look at that on Google Maps. I love Google Maps. Does anyone else have this obsession? Like if I'm reading a crime report and it says a killer was from a certain street or a murder was on a certain street, Google Maps, I have a look at it. I love it. I love all that sort of stuff. Who's this? Harry Jackson. Morning, Harry. Morning, Gary. I'm looking forward and hopeful to Scooby's reign. We showed fight and battle against Barnsley. Given time and Skubala's background in futsal, could we eventually see a fast build-up 4-2-3-1? Yes. Leeds loan players in January, not as certain about that. I think there's a lot to be said when somebody comes in. I'll call it lazy journalism. Charlie, we're going back this way, dude. I'm going to call it lazy journalism, and I should know because I run the Real EFL, which is a site that kind of trades on stuff like that as well. Quick turnaround journalism. But Leeds under 21 coach goes into Lincoln. What article is going to get views? Under 23 players from Leeds that could join on loan. Whereas our recruitment process, I think, will already be 2/3 of the way, 70% of the way complete for January. I think we'll be at a point where we've identified targets, we've looked at them. Now, if there's correlation between our previous targets or our, the work that we've done in Leeds, then yes, of course, it will make a difference. And potentially, Michael Skubala might go, actually, this guy would be really good. And then we go down that route. But I'm not sure that we'll see 2, for instance. We may see 1. We may. Where we got? Morning, Bright. I hope you're well, mate. Emily Rook. Emily, so sorry I didn't say hello. Everything passed me by really quickly on Saturday when we walked past you, but I didn't realise that you knew my mate Matt Ward. I pity you for that. I've introduced my dad to the game of Burridge. Yeah, Burridge. If you don't watch the podcast, get on it. Game of Burridge. Brilliant. Love it. His default answer when he gets stuck is always Jack Payne. Yeah, fantastic. Do you know what? It's so Burridge is a game where we pick a team, let's say Mansfield, then I have to say a player that's played for Lincoln and Mansfield, my opponent does, and you just keep going until somebody gets stuck, and then you say John Burridge because he played for Lincoln and a million other teams. And then if John Burridge did play for the team, then you win, and if they didn't, you lose. Great game. But you forget, like Chris says, you forget all footballers. So you'll get one player in your mind and you'll go, yeah, he played for us both. And then the next time it comes around, you can't see beyond him. Burridge, great game. Charlie, don't you think you get enough exposure on the podcast without hijacking the dog walks? Anyway, let's see what he's got to say. No, I'm only joking, Charlie. Here's one for you. We know Skubala wants to play a back four, I assume that is. When do you think the tipping point for that will be? Okay, I've kind of answered that. The first game it's tried, I think next Tuesday night. Thoughts? Like I said, I don't think he's going to go to a back four on a regular basis until the end of the season, unless he gets the work done on the training ground, but I can't see it happening personally. Ben's selection at centre back tonight is going to be the best kind of headache. Yeah, I think it could be eased by Lass coming off, because if Lass comes off, it does leave scope for TJ to go at right back, and then Pordy just to drop in alongside Jacko and Mitchell. If Lass is fit, that won't happen. Also, there's a chance that if Lass is not fit, it will be Burrows on one flank and then Duffy on the other. So it does raise the big question. Personally, I would like to see it be Jacko, Pordy, and TJ, because there are players. And Alex Mitchell, that's really harsh because he has been superb, by the way. I really like Alex Mitchell, really good centre half. You know, and if it was a 13 instead of 11 that you could pick and you could have 4 centre halves, we'd be sorted for that as well. We've got such a good selection of them, but we've got to prioritise our own players, I think. So, James Christopher, hope you're well. Morning, guys. It's great to see TJ regaining some of that form we saw from the season you mentioned. Fingers crossed he can maintain it. I just hope he can maintain it, and he'll only do that by staying in the side. Gaz, when TJ played at Ipswich last year, he was superb. I spent the train journey back to London with him. I feel what we've seen of him in the last 3 games, he's back up to that standard again. Do you know what? Like I say, he is a good person. And you know when football clubs say about signing good people, and then you realise that they perhaps haven't. Chris Maguire, I'm looking at you. The other team that we're in, my understanding is that the other team that we're in for TJ when we signed him were Portsmouth, and Portsmouth at the time were managed by Danny Cowley. So Danny Cowley does his due diligence and signs what he believes to be good people. So I think that is a further rubber stamp of the fact that TJ is what it says on the tin. And look, we've got some really good people across the back, by the way, because Adam Jackson is one of my favourite footballers off the field. I've been lucky enough to meet him at some events and chat to him, and he's the most down-to-earth kind of grounded individual. He'll talk to you about pretty much anything. He's just a great guy. Pordy is another really nice guy. Met him at the sponsors event, seen him at a couple of other events, and again, you're sort of grounded. There's no arrogance, there's no Billy Big Bollocks, any sort of like that, and they're very softly spoken as well. There's a couple in the team that you feel are live wires. Ethan Arahan and Danny Mandroyo, I've met them, and they're smiling. You can see them, they're laughing, they're joking, they're all that sort of stuff. Sean Rowan, very serious individual. He's focused. Sean Rowan knows where he wants to go. You can tell that. When we did the recordings for, I'm Sean Rowan, you're listening to Stacey West podcast, a lot of them were taking a mix. So Danny Mandroyo, Ethan Arahan taking the mick out of each other. And the other guys really happy to do it. Sean Rowan, let's move away, let's go somewhere where the other guys aren't. Let me get this right, let me do this properly. Do you know what I mean? I like that focused young man. Kate Jackson, morning Kate, hope you're well, or at least better than you were. Yes, I am, thank you, Kate. Terry, morning Gary, can you start again? I'm a bit late. Well, it does go live on YouTube, Terry, so you don't have to worry about that, mate, at all. Roy Rogers says, as you say, it's bridging the team till the new year. Yeah, I just think, we will need to recruit in the new year. I think we'll need to bring probably a centre forward in. I can see Jovan going out on loan. We need to get him out on loan. We need Jovan to be playing 20, 25 matches after January, centre forward for a team in the National League. And if he does that, but I think he'll score 5, 6, 10 goals in that period. He's big, he's strong, he's quick. I just think he'd be a massive asset now at National League level. I think he's a different player to the one Brackley said. I think he's got a decent future as a League One, League Two footballer. I tell you what I see in him. And it's not entirely the same type of player, but it's the same type of development. I see a Lenny John Lewis. You know, I think in 20 years' time, we're still going to be looking, going, bloody hell, Jovan's turned up at, you know, Shrewsbury or Colchester, and you'll say, hey, he must have one of the best agents in the game, because I think he'll be a footballer's footballer. I think with his physique, and I think with that kind of unpredictable air that he has, that's what I see him being. I see him being a League One, League Two, possibly National League kind of journeyman over the course of his career. But I think he'll thrash out a good career. I don't think that in 3 years' time he's going to be playing part-time for Folkestone doing PT training as well or anything like that. Excuse me. Steve Turner, morning. Will you ask our head coach if he's an ABBA fan? Well, we know he's Blur more than Oasis. I had to laugh at that because they said to him, Lincolnshire did an interview and said to him, you know, are you Blur or Oasis? Well, I'm kind of Oasis. He says Blur. Tea or coffee? I'm tea. He says coffee. Charlie, this way. Dog or cat? Dog. He said cat rather. Well, I said dog, but given this morning's kind of trials and tribulations, I'm not so sure. Charlie, up here, mate. This side. This way, because you can't go that way, can you? And I'm not carrying you again. I am carrying him again. Josh Harrison is genuinely a nice guy. He came out before the game just to chat to the fans. I'm not sure whether that's Michael Skubala or TJ Ioma. Kev Barways, morning, Gary. I'm sensing the feel-good factor, just maybe returning to old Cynic Bank again. What, without the brothers, Kev? You shocked me, mate. Ben's on it without the brothers. Brilliant, brilliant. Charlie says, speaking of exposure, don't forget to send everyone over to the preview after this. Yes, so there is a preview of the Cambridge game Charlie recorded for us. That's on the YouTube channel. Have a look at that. He recorded with, I think it was Tom from under the Abbey stand. Yeah, fantastic job that Charlie does, and Ben as well, recording the previews for the podcast. Kev Green, good morning, chilly morning, guys. It is, mate. My hands are freezing out here. I'm wrapping this up fairly quick. Charlie says, I would love Jovan to go to Solihull with the praise Ben gets for his deliveries. Could be a great link up there for the second half of the season. Do you know what? That's actually quite a good idea. Hang on. Wait there. Come here. You ready? You ready? Oh, you're fucking filthy. Say hello. Yeah, I know. Oh, honestly, dog. Best friend, but it's like having a child at times. There you go. Go on. And my hand's filthy now. Oh, turning it every way. Yeah, it's interesting that, because if he were to go to Solihull and he were to get in there, it would be good for him to be working with another member of City's playing staff. And when you look at Drogheda, even though Huey and Draper and Long and Rowan, you know, not particularly players that are going to get understandings as a winger and a centre forward would, or a fullback and a wide player, or a pair of midfielders, I think it does help a little bit as well in terms of settling and in terms of just kind of being able to maybe be yourself a little bit more. It's like if you get a job somewhere and you walk into a workplace and you're the new boy and you don't know anybody there, it can be tough to settle. So if you're a young lone player going in a January and you don't know anyone at a team, it can be tough, especially if they've got 3 centre forwards and you're the one that's coming in to kind of usurp them. Whereas if you go to a team where you already know people, not just a coach, you know, already know players, I think that it can help. So that's a really good point, Charlie. That's why we love him on the podcast, because he makes good points and they're not around numbers, that's not all Chris's good points, to be fair. So there we go, 38 minutes in. My nose is running into my beard. My arms are beginning to ache. My hands are cold. I desperately need a wee. And my dog doesn't care. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I do like getting these dog walk videos out where I can. For those of you that are patrons, thank you so much. So you're aware, the Patreon money is used to subscribe to StreamYard, which we use for the video. It's used to subscribe to Y Scout, which we use to feed Chris on a weekly basis, because apparently a Chris lambing in the wild without numbers dries out like a prune, so we have to keep him hydrated with stats and numbers. But we do that via Y Scout. There are other things that we do as well across the board, but because my patrons, the patrons have been able to pay for those things, the money from the Stacey West we've been able to use to sponsor Ethan Arahan and to make a donation to local charities. Don't particularly shout about that. I'm not the sort of person that's going to come on and go, yeah, we've done this or that. But we have given everything that we had in our bank account to charity this Christmas. So it's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to be able to do something and help other people, and that's down to you guys watching the live shows, going on to the Patreon. I think it's as little as £2 a month, and it's really, really appreciated. So, but that's not an advert, you know what I mean? Just a thank you. So there we go. Cambridge United coming up tonight. After that 7-day break for Michael Skubala to get on the training ground before Accrington in the BSM Trophy that I've already written off, which means we'll win it this season. And then we're back in league action, and then it's into that busy Christmas period. And who knows, we might get an early Christmas present of Tyler Walker back in the team. Come January, we'll get a Jack Moylan around the side. We will probably add 1 or 2 more. And believe me, and I say this from a place of absolute sincerity, because I have, at the moment, no connection to the club. I'm not on the supporters board, don't write for the programme, I don't do anything like that. I can be 100% objective. I always try to be. I firmly believe that we are a club on the up. I think the upward trajectory has been pretty much constant since 2016, since Dan and Nick came in. I don't think we've deviated hugely from it. I think we are now an established League One club, and I think with Michael Skubala and the squad that we've got, we have as good a chance as any since in normal times. I'm not talking about the COVID season, in 45 years, 40 years at being promoted. I really do. We're the dark horses in this division, mark my words. Thanks for watching. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers.